hail the glow cloud. Sacrifice. Pestilence. Soul wars. All hail.
Fuck did I get down here? Namaste, Suicidalists! Here we are on another Friday, and here I am with another review for you. This week we're going back a couple of months to take a look at the found footage horror anthology sequel, VHS 2. Now, I'm getting about as tired of found footage horror movies as I am zombie movies, but you know what? Fuck it. The first one got quite a bit of hype, and I was pretty interested to see where the sequel was going to take us. So we'll be taking a look at that, but first, the hotness. Statistically speaking, you are probably already listening to the Welcome to Night Vale podcast. It is extremely popular. According to iTunes' top podcast rankings, it routinely switches out the top 2 spots with This American Life. It is just that big. And so this probably makes me one of the last people in America, in the world maybe, to actually subscribe to the show. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about right now, in that unlikely event, check it. Welcome to Night Vale is a twice monthly podcast from Commonplace Books that plays out like a community radio broadcast for the fictional burg of Nightvale, where all manner of weird shit happens with regular, mundane routine. I'm talking black helicopters and Lovecraftian themes and unexplained phenomenon and every single conspiracy theory known to man. It's like every X-Files episode crammed into one podcast, into one little fictional city. And overseeing it all is Cecil, the voice of Nightvale Radio. With a cool, even tone, Cecil reports on the strange shit that seems to be happening at all times in Nightvale, like it ain't no thing. For instance, the weird light hovering over the Arby's sign, the movements of the hidden underground city beneath Lane 5 at the local bowling alley, the unspeakable horror of street cleaning day, the mystery of the man in the tan jacket with the deerskin suitcase. It is exceptionally written. It is brilliantly performed. It is extremely funny, really fucking spooky, and I'm pissed that I didn't think of it first. Make time to check this podcast out. I'm going to link to it down in the description. Just check out the first episode. I guarantee that you're going to burn through the rest of them in a single sitting, because it really is just that good. And then you're going to understand what all that nonsense was in the stinger about the glow cloud. VHS 2 is an anthology horror movie that's not exactly an anthology horror movie. It is 4 short films directed by 6 directors, 2 of which are collaborations, and it's all surrounded by a sort of a wraparound feature about a pair of private investigators who are hired by a woman to find her missing son. They infiltrate his house, they find the place in shambles, there's nothing but a bunch of TVs all stacked up running static, and a stack of unlabeled video cassettes. And on their Mark's laptop, they found a video blog of him talking about all the tape trades he's been involved in lately, and some sort of mystery of the order in which you watch a bunch of these movies. And he seems to be watching a lot of real death and snuff films lately. So as they watch the tapes in his collection, all sorts of weird shit around them begins to happen, sort of culminating in an all hell breaks loose ending. But between the start and the end of that story, there are 4 short films. There's one about a guy who gets a sort of bionic eye implanted in his head. It's always on, it's always recording, and he starts to see ghosts around his house. There's one about a guy with a GoPro camera on his bike helmet who rides his bike on the trails in the park until he's attacked by zombies. It's a sort of first-person zombie movie. And then there's Safe Haven, which is about a video news crew which goes to a compound of this doomsday cult in Indonesia. And the final one is a bunch of kids fucking around with a video camera, and they capture a particularly harrowing alien encounter. I'm a longtime fan of the Twilight Zone, which has really bred in me an appreciation for short horror as a whole. So recently I've put the brakes on to check out a couple of short horror anthologies, like the ABCs of Death. And where I thought that one was a great idea in theory, it was deeply flawed in practice. But VHS 2 takes some of my criticism of that movie and applies it to itself here by taking its short films and placing them within the bounds of a larger framework in order to give the shorts some cohesion. There are 4 shorts and a wraparound 5th short film, which is kind of the main feature. They all share a common bond, a sort of common narrative thread, and they all benefit from a common rule set. So there are 7 directors, some of horror's relative newcomers, some of horror's most exciting new directors, all working on these films. The wraparound feature tape 49 comes from director Simon Barrett. The first feature in the series is Adam Wingard's Phase 1 Clinical Trials. It's followed up by a short called A Ride in the Park from directors Greg Hale and Eduardo Sanchez, who's one of the directors of the Blair Witch Project. The third segment comes from Gareth Evans and Timo Tjahjanto, who were directing on The Raid Redemption and Marantau, a couple of movies that are fucking fantastic, not even remotely horror movies. And the entire thing is rounded out by Jason Eisener's Alien Abduction Slumber Party. VHS was a pretty successful movie, and it managed to take a bunch of relative newcomer directors and put them right out on the map. And this is a really good thing, because if horror needs anything right now, it needs a strong dose of new talent. However, I was suspicious of its premise. I did not see it, in spite of a little bit of an interest. And I figured if I was going to do something for review, I wanted to do something a little more recent, so I picked the sequel over the predecessor. VHS 2 was actually produced and released in less than a year after the release of VHS, which I guess sort of makes this the break-in 2 of horror movies. Ordinarily, this would indicate a really sort of cheap cash grab, but this mostly works because, you know, it's a series of short horror movies and they really don't take all that long to produce. Now, broken down, the sort of wraparound story, tape 49, from director Simon Barrett, is a mostly cheap excuse to get us watching a bunch of short horror movies. It is pretty much forgettable. It's basically just the frame for the rest of the movie. There's not a whole lot that's memorable about it. Adam Wingard's Phase 1 Clinical Trials is almost a total ripoff of the Pang Brothers horror movie The Eye. I really don't know what's going on with Adam. I really liked his feature Pop Skull, and I hear You're Next is fucking outstanding. But this is the second short film of his which has really failed to impress me. The first being his contribution to the ABCs of Death, which I thought was one of the worst in the bunch. Now, following that up is Eduardo Sanchez's A Ride in the Park, which is about as predictable as horror movies get. Every day, teenagers with GoPro cameras are making and releasing these zombie attack POV movies directly to YouTube. So, and also Ben Wheatley's contribution to the ABCs of Death is also extremely similar to A Ride in the Park. Thankfully, the latter 2 shorts of the movie pick up the slack and fucking run wild with it. Safe Haven, even though it sags a little bit in the middle, is unbelievably tight and really fucking intense right up to the finale, where it is almost entirely undone by one of the stupidest fucking monster puppets I have ever seen. And rounding out the series is Jason Eisener, who directed the really awesome Hobo with a Shotgun. He turns in Alien Abduction Slumber Party, which is basically a bunch of teenagers fucking around with a video camera on a night without parents, when a night without parents goes as horribly wrong as it possibly can. This is about as good as short horror gets, were it not for the unbelievably terrible alien costumes. The camera work, however, is extremely hectic, and it is key to the success of this movie. The pacing is really, really tight. It's frantic. It's a little scary, claustrophobic in parts. It is the high water mark of the entire movie. VHS 2. Short films don't have a whole lot of time, so they have to get to the point quickly. And the mark of a good filmmaker or writer is how effectively they make use of their time. So Greg Hale and Eduardo Sanchez really dropped the ball with their short. And even though Adam Wingard gets to the point to tell a story really quickly, his story has been told in other better movies. Now, thankfully, the last 2 segments are there to pick up the pace and the slack, even though Safe Haven starts to feel like it's dragging a little bit in the pacing department. There's a point where all hell breaks loose. The sprint to the finale is unbelievably fucking intense. And if you want to see how to make a hectic short movie, look no further than Jason Eisener's Alien Abduction Slumber Party. That guy needs to make another feature like fucking ASAP. Overall, however, the entire movie feels a little bland, but for the last 2 segments. And that has a lot to do with the entire novelty of the found footage horror movie starting to feel a little sweaty. So what do you think? Have you seen VHS 2? Good, bad, waste of time? I want to know. And I also would like to know what your favorite segment was. I mean, personally, I'm torn between Safe Haven and Alien Abduction Slumber Party. Both are great. I'm leaning toward the latter, however. Also, if there's anything else you want to see reviewed, please let me know. I'm always interested in your thoughts. If you have not already, join the Suicidal Facebook for more updates. Follow me on Twitter for random ramblings about movies, TV, fucking day job. And for the shits and grins, follow me on Tumblr for funny pictures. And by all means, if you have not already, please take a minute to check out my Patreon profile. Consider pledging your support for future episodes of Cinema Suicide. It would be greatly appreciated. As always, like, comment, subscribe. I will see you next Friday.